If you want a cheap apartment, is you have to move to far away land. You have to move to a small ass town where everybody goes to Walmart for fun. Your second option, if you want cheap rent, is your roommate is probably going to be rats and roaches. Your car is going to get broken into. You're probably going to get shot. But at least your city is a lot of fun and there's a lot of things to do in your city.
What does the American government think is going to happen if rent prices continue to increase and our salaries are not increasing with it? Genuinely, what do they think is going to happen?
Hello everyone, I'm Myra and welcome to her Unfiltered POV, a channel where I give my unfiltered opinion about all the hot button issues happening in today's world. I hope you enjoyed today's video. It's gonna be a good one. And if any of the stories or the commentary from these clips resonate with you, then make sure you let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Now let's get into the video. So this first clip is from Jordan the Stallion 8. And it actually starts with a screenshot of a tweet from Bianca that says the average rent is $2,000 in America and we're supposed to make 3 times the rent, which is $6,000, which is $72,000 a year. The average salary in the US is $51,000. The math ain't mathing to me. I totally agree with this.
You wanna know what's funny, right? The average cost of rent rose up from $2,000 to $3,000, right? And if you're supposed to make 3 times the amount of your rent in order to qualify to be able to rent a place, that means you have to make $9,000 a month, meaning you have to make over $90,000 a year, right? Come here. That means even if you were to make $25 an hour at your job, you still would not be able to afford to stay at a place by yourself. And people are saying, oh, we'll just get a roommate.
Right.
Nobody likes roommates, and you can't even rely on the roommate to either come up with their half of the rent, and if anything, they're more of a liability. Putting their name on the lease is even more stressful. And notice how we're just talking about renting. We're not talking about getting a house, because virtually that's just impossible at this point. So yes, none of this is fun. Being an adult isn't fun.
I totally agree with this. I mean, the fact that rent prices increased from $2,000 to $3,000, $2,000 is already too much, but $3,000 for a 1-bedroom apartment is just insane. I don't know how people do it in some of the cities, especially when you're living by yourself. He's totally right. I wouldn't be particularly the one loving the idea of sharing an apartment with a roommate. It's hard. I've done it before and it's not my preference, but in this situation, I don't really know how else people would be able to afford this type of rent price. I mean, $3,000 is just insane.
I just got my new lease agreement because my lease ends next month and freaking out a little bit. Every single year, my rent has gone up by $100. I live by myself. I pay the entirety of the rent on my own. My new rent starting next month is $1,200. $1,200. For one, I don't know how I've even been paying $1,100 for the past month. I don't know how I've been doing it, but I've been doing it. Barely. To divulge some extra information that I probably should not divulge, I get paid every week. And for 2 weeks, I can't touch my paycheck, not even $1, because those 2 paychecks have to go to rent. I essentially don't have any money for 3 weeks most of the time during the month. And that just repeats month after month after month. So I'm not sure about what we're gonna do going forward. Luckily it's my birthday next week and I am going to get a chunk of change that I will be holding on to for dear life. But this is like a big reason why I wanted to be a part of the Creator Fund, because obviously I cannot afford the cost of living, and I need to get my dog a behaviorist, which I also cannot afford. I need to pay off my credit cards, which I cannot afford to do. They have been closed for 3 years. I have been paying them off for 3 years. And I did try looking into getting a part-time job, but I simply do not have time on top of my full-time job and having a dog that, I need to be home for. So if y'all know any way to make extra money that isn't, OF or something of that sort, it isn't something that I need to leave the house for because I have my dog, let me fucking know. Let me fucking know. I'm poorer today than I was yesterday, and I'm just gonna keep getting more and more poor, so.
Yeah, I mean, the situation is unfortunately more common than it should be. I think the fact that she's mentioned that she has credit card debt, and she's obviously mentioning other expenses like having a pet, which, hey, if you have a pet, you have a pet. So inflation obviously is jacking up the prices on literally everything, including rent. And the fact that everybody's on credit card debt and student loan debt obviously makes the situation much worse.
I keep seeing these videos about people aren't getting paid enough to afford rent, and I just have one thing to say. It makes no fucking sense that the wage to rent ratio does not match. And I live in Florida. Florida is very expensive. The rent here is insane. Like, I live in a 4x4 apartment, and each of us pay over $1,000. Like, that's fucking ridiculous. That is $4,000. Like, I don't know if I don't know about economics, if we're all just getting, but I do not understand how people are affording to live right now. And I know this is a big crisis that everyone's talking about, but the reason that I say this is because people think when they get out of college and they get their first job that they can just go live on their own and become financially stable. Absolutely not. If you are not making at least 1/3 of your rent, you should not have that apartment. You should not be moving out, because people do not realize how expensive shit is. How much stuff you have to buy besides just rent and utilities. You got your car insurance, your phone bill, your food, your credit card bill, your gas. And I'm no financial advisor, but the wages should match the rent in that area. And don't get me wrong, like, my girlfriend lives in like a cheap area where like her rent is like less than $1,000 a month for a 1x1. So yeah, the wages might be like, you know, a little shittier. Florida, none of the wages are increasing in Florida, but the rent is through the roof. Like, they raised mine $300. I already pay $1,000 to live with 3 rugrats, 3 strangers that I don't know. I'm not paying $1,300 for 3 roommates. Like, you got me. The rent prices piss me off, because why in the are you charging that much for an apartment? These landlords are eating you up, spitting you out, really sucking on hard too, because they are getting so paid. They're making so much money off of you.
What does the American government think is going to happen if rent prices continue to increase and our salaries are not increasing with it? Genuinely, what do they think is going to happen? I truly don't understand not doing rent caps. I know that's a thing in New York, but I'm from the South. I've never heard of such a thing down here. I only hear about it in New York. That needs to be instituted nationwide, and it needs to be by state, by square footage of the apartment, how many bedrooms, has it been updated, things like that. Because the thing that doesn't make sense to me is I'm in the same apartment for years. You're not changing my carpet, you're not painting any walls in here, you're not giving me new appliances, and you're increasing the price of staying here every year, but nothing is changing. Like, I would totally respect it if you renovated my place and made it luxury and then increased the price. I would get that. I would respect it, but nothing has changed and you're increasing the price on me. I don't understand, because eventually now I'm lucky that I have been in a place that has been increasing for the past 5 years that I've been here, but it has not increased outrageously. And I believe that is because of when I started living here and the fact that I stayed with them. They're choosing not to raise it outrageously. What happens if I continue to stay here 10 years from now? Is this same apartment going to be $5,000 a month, even though nothing in here has changed? Like, what do people expect to happen? Like, of course, people are going to go out and search for a cheaper place, and they're going to move out of your place. And eventually, if you skyrocket your prices enough, no one is going to live there at all. No one is going to live there because it's not going to be affordable. So what do people think is going to happen when you continue to increase the prices of these things and no one's salary or nothing about the place is changing? Like, it sounds like a rhetorical question, but is there actually a business person, someone out there who knows the logic behind this and knows, like, this is the end goal? What the heck is going on?
Alright, so it's time to talk about rent prices, because if you are in the US like me, I'm sure that you know that rent prices are over the roof. According to the latest data, the average rent for a 1-bedroom apartment nationwide is about $1,700 a month. And if you're in cities like New York or San Francisco, you're looking at about $3,000 to $4,000 or more a month just to barely scrape and live in a tiny studio apartment. which is insane. And it's just wild to me to realize how fast things have changed. Now, I do think that this situation gets progressively worse, obviously, depending on where you live. Now, you can fact check me on this, but based on what I've read and what I've listened to, in some states like Texas and Florida, for example, the average rent is about $1,200 to $1,500, which is still high, but it's definitely more manageable compared to other places where the rent is like $3,000, $4,000, which again, it's insane. I don't even know how people are able to afford these prices. Now we can talk about different things and different factors on what is really causing this. I think in general, this is just a natural consequence of inflation. What I want to focus on specifically is the fact that wages are not keeping up with the rise in the rent prices. So over the last decade, rent prices have increased about 36%, but the average wage has only gone up about 17%. So rent prices have gone up 36% and wages have only gone up 17%. And rent prices are not the only thing that's increasing, obviously. I just made a video about grocery prices also going out of control. So everything's more expensive, but the wages have remained stagnant, which is obviously the problem on why many people are not able to survive anymore in just one income. And a lot of people are having to get a second job, get side hustles. So the cost of everything is rising up and people in general are just not making enough money to sustain it. This life is just unaffordable right now.
Let me confirm something for you.
Rent is too damn high.
So here's what's up, and here's why. The median asking rent in the US surpassed $2,000 for the first time in May. That's up 15% from a year ago, and 30 to almost 50% in some cities. This next stat makes me ill, but the median rent in Manhattan just went up to over $4,000 a month, at a time when landlords require a gross income of 3 times the rent. That's a lot of cutting back on avocado toast. So what exactly is going on? Number 1, city dwellers like me that left to live with family early in the pandemic are now back and they're looking for places on their own. But inventory is down thanks to a shortage of both materials and workers. It's classic supply and demand. Number 2, the housing boom of 2021. It priced out a lot of people and now more are forced to rent. Number 3, landlords are now raising the rent significantly following the freezes of the last 2 years. No joke, this is a text from a good friend of mine who just received his new lease. Insane. Number 4, in the Sun Belt, where millennials have been flocking, investors and big corporations are buying
almost 30% of the homes that are available for regular home buyers.
And then they're renting them out, and therefore playing a pretty big role in setting these ridiculously high rental prices in places that don't normally have them.
My rent in Miami has gone up $750. And let's not even say Miami, North Miami. If you know, you know. North Miami is a older area. They are building some new stuff, but it's an older area. The apartments are old. They don't really have any amenities. Like my apartment does not have fitness center, pool, nothing. There's not even an on-site office, okay? It's literally just your apartment is what you get, okay? And that's pretty much it. And again, it's an old building. They have done some renovations in the unit, but the bones have some issues. But the cost when I moved in was only $1,200, okay? And the pros of this building is that the units are spacious, okay? Y'all know these new apartments are so tiny. And so this building is clearly built for families. I can do an apartment tour because I'm actually moving out. I can do an apartment tour and show y'all how big it is. But again, there's no amenities. There's nothing that makes it worth what they're charging. So when I moved in 2021, the rent was $1,200, okay? Right now, I'm paying $1,800. When I first moved in, pretty much everybody in this building had been here for like 5+ years, okay? It was mainly Haitian people, like almost 100%, maybe 98% Haitian, and then 2% just African Americans or Jamaican. And yeah, everybody lived here for a long time. It was very family friendly. People would be outside all day, kids playing. It was a very homey neighborhood. I loved it. Once they did that rent increase, which was initially like $500, $600, it went up to $1,800. Everybody moved out, okay? Everybody and their mother moved out.
Yeah, I don't know how close she is to Miami, but I would assume that obviously the closer you are to Miami, your rent price is going to be a little steep or on the high end. However, a $750 increase is completely crazy. It's completely insane.
So I got a letter from my apartment complex to Miss Rachel Peterson Connolly. I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but basically if Ty and I choose to renew our lease in August, it's gonna cost us $4,008 a month. We live in a 2-bed, 2-bath in South Denver. Just so you don't think I'm making it up, we would be paying almost as much as my parents do for a 7-bedroom, 11-acre house. Colorado, y'all are on some crack cocaine.
See, all you need is first month, which is $700, plus a deposit of $350. Yeah, that works for me. Thank you. Let's see, all you need is your first month, which is $950, plus your deposit, which is another $950. Oh, okay. Yeah, I can still do that. Thank you. I'm going to need my notepad for this one, but here's what you're gonna need. You're gonna need 3 times the rent, which is gonna be $2,300. You're gonna need a deposit of $2,300. Let's see, you're also gonna need a credit score of 750, no exceptions. You're going to need to have no evictions in the last 10 years. But wait, I'm not finished. There will be no pets allowed. Application fee, non-refundable, which is $75 per adult. There's going to be a late fee of $50 per month. There's a $35 transaction fee. There is a fee to the fee of $25. Yeah, no, apparently I can't afford it. So I'm going to stay with my parents who purchased that house in 1980 for $42.30. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm not really sure when this new rule or requirement came into place about the fact that rent now has to be 1/3 of your income, because that makes it obviously very unrealistic for the average American. If you're paying $2,000 and $3,000 in rent, that would make it so that your salary would have to be at least $90,000, which is most likely not the case for most people renting these places. So there are new requirements from landlords, which I'm not sure if it's the majority of them. I assume it is, because I hear a lot of people talking about this. They are quite steep and quite ridiculous.
If you want cheap rent without getting a roommate, there's only 2 options available. So for your first option, if you want a cheap apartment, is you have to move to far, far away land. You have to move to a small ass town where everybody goes to Walmart for fun. There's nothing to do and you'll be bored as hell, but your rent will be $35 a month. Your second option, if you want cheap rent, is your roommate is probably gonna be rats and roaches. Your car's gonna get broken into. You're probably gonna get shot. But at least your city's a lot of fun and there's a lot of things to do in your city. And this is why I think renting is such a very unfair concept. I have a friend who's paying $2,500 a month for a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment in Miami, Florida. Then I have another friend who's paying $800 for a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment in a small town in South Carolina. Both apartments are pretty much the same size. The only difference is location. I think it should be illegal for rent to be over $2,000 a month. You could be paying $2,000 a month for your apartment and your next door neighbor, same model, same everything, could be paying $1,800 for the same model apartment as you. Or they could be paying more than you. When you renew your lease, it could go up by $9 or $900. And then you're paying $2,000 a month, but you will never own your apartment. You will never own it. I feel like rent should be like a fixed amount across the board. A 1-bedroom apartment anywhere in the United States should be like $800. A 2-bedroom apartment should be like $900. Life is unfair, but renting is 10 times unfairer.
Now, what I'm about to say may piss a lot of landlords off, but I don't really care at all. But I'm gonna read to y'all the qualifications that this person wants for this house. And it ain't an amazing ass house. We're not talking about anything super expensive. The rent, like I said, is $16.95, $40 application fee per adult. They want you to make 3.5 times the rent. Standard for whatever reason is 3 times the rent. When majority of Americans don't even make 3 times a $1,600 a month rent. I don't know where people just get up and be like, oh yeah, we're just gonna make this a national standard that people have to make 3 times the rent amount. Majority of people can afford 2 times the rent on a specific basic home like this, but this person is going even further. They don't want you to have 3 times the rent. They want you to have 3.5 times the rent. They want the last 2 years of your W-2s, the last 3 months of your check stub, driver's license or ID, social security card. They want you to make 2 months worth of rent as your security deposit before you even move in, and you have to have a credit score of at least a 670. I'm trying to tell you off the bat that disqualifies so many people from being able to be in a home that is decent. Let's add that up, why don't we? Off the rip, you have to pay first month's rent, $16.95. You have to pay $40 application fee per adult, and let's just say the standard adult is 2 adults, right? You have to pay, if you have a pet, which majority of people in Houston do have pets, dogs, it's a $250 non-refundable fee per pet. So let's just say you have a pet. We're gonna add that up, and then you have to make 2 months of the rent to equal the amount of the security deposit. So that's $16.95 times 2. All right, and on top of that, we're not even talking about your utilities and all the things that you have set up. They want you to have rental insurance before you move in. Standard rental insurance is probably about $25 a month. Let's just say that. Before you can even move into this house, sitting in a savings account somewhere or just idle money, you already got to come off of this amount of money. At what point did we stop being human and we say money trumps everything, including people?
If you're not scared of having some real conversations, then make sure you hit that subscribe button right there and join the community, and it will help me continue to create this kind of content for you every single week. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed today's video, then hit that like button and make sure that you watch this video next.